So today I thought I would answer a question that I've been asked so many times. I keep replying in the comments, but I want to make it a little bit easier for you guys to find, and it seems like something you guys really actually question all the time. So the question is, obviously by the title, why did I buy the A7R3 over the A9 or the A7III? So let's just jump straight into the answer. So first off, the main reason obviously was I needed a second camera. I had an A9 and the A7III wasn't out yet. It wasn't released. It wasn't available in stores, and it wasn't going to be available for some time. That's the main reason. It's pretty clear. But let me answer the question in a more detailed reason why I'm still happy with the R3 and why I'm sticking with my choice. So I had an A9, like I said, and I needed a second body, so I bought an A7R3, and I was really happy with it. I didn't really want it for the 42 megapixels. I just didn't want to pay for another A9, and I thought 42 megapixels might come in handy sometimes, although believe me, it's overkill for pretty much any situation that I'm ever going to be in. I also wanted S-Log profiles, which obviously weren't available in the A9. Really annoying. For such an expensive camera, you'd think that Sony would put it in there. Sony, if you're listening, you really should just make a software update and put S-Log or picture profiles in general into the A9 because people want it. So I got my A7R3, my first one, and I was really happy with it. And then I found that when I was shooting them side by side with the A9 and the R3, there was really no noticeable difference in autofocus that I could pick up on. And you know, I just use my cameras. I don't really test them, you know, with charts and crazy situations and all that sort of stuff. I'm a wedding photographer. I use my cameras as tools, and as a wedding photographer, I didn't notice any difference between the A9 and the R3. I know some people are going to argue with me. I know on paper the A9 focus is better. And the only place I really did notice it was when you're sort of focusing on the outside edges and the A9 goes right to the edge where the A7R3 sort of only has the middle section. Bearing in mind that the R3 still had a bigger focus section than any of my Nikons did. I was plenty happy with it, and I didn't really need, there was no situation where I really needed to be right on that outside edge where the A9 goes. Now after a little while it started to bother me that I only had S-Log in my A7R3 and not on my A9, because when I was doing photo and video at a wedding at the same time, I ended up having to just shoot with no profile because I couldn't have it on both cameras, and shooting S-Log on one and no profile on the other just doesn't work when it comes to editing, I found. So I made another video and I traded my A9 in for a second A7R3. Now at that point the A7III was available, but I decided to stick with the A7R3, and here are my reasons. The first reason was I found that the A7R3 is a little bit stronger than the A7III, so it has an all-metal construction where the A7III is half plastic and half metal, you know, front to back. So that was the thing for me, and the A7R3 was also a little bit more weather sealed, where the A7III is not weather sealed at all, which is fine. It's a cheaper camera and you've got to sacrifice some things for the lower price. No weather sealing on the A7III, a little bit of weather sealing on the R3, and just to be clear, I have had my cameras quite wet. I've shot quite a few weddings with these, a lot of them in the rain, never had any protective cases or anything like that, and I've never had a camera fail. I do, however, have a friend that had an A7 III, and her camera died in the rain, so it kind of just established in my mind that I really made the right choice going with the R3, not the A7 III, and you just kind of have to be careful with it. She was using it in quite heavy rain. Now I know everybody else is going to have different experience. Some people will use the A7 III in the rain and not have an issue. You know, I've seen people with D810s and 5D Mark IVs that have also had cameras die because of rain. So just because that camera says it's weather sealed doesn't mean it's waterproof. So that's a really important thing to remember. Second reason was the A7R3. A lot of people don't know this, but the A7R3 has a shutter life count of 500,000 clicks. Now that's really massive. 500,000 clicks is the lifespan of your entire shutter, where the A7 III is half that at 250,000 clicks. Now 250,000 clicks is still a lot. Most pro cameras have a shutter rating of about 250. I think the D810 was about 250 and the 5D Mark IV probably about the same. So 250 is fine, but 500 is a lot better, so I figured it's going to last me longer. Now the fourth reason would be the 42 megapixel sensor. So like I already said, 42 megapixels is really unnecessary for any situation that I'm really going to be in mostly, but it does come in handy when I'm using crop mode, especially if you saw my last video when I've just started recently using the 24mm G Master in crop mode to have like a 37mm, and it just kind of doubles my lenses when I can have crop mode and still have about 18 megapixels. Now if you have a print from the A9 and an A7R3 side by side, same size, same photo, same settings and everything, you can notice the difference, but it's not that large that if you were just looking at random photos on a wall and you didn't know which camera is which, then you'd have to be looking for it to see the difference. So in my opinion, 42 megapixels totally isn't necessary, but it's nice to have if you need it. So the fifth reason is mostly just like I said, going all the way back to the start of the video, just having two cameras the same sort of is much easier for me. I don't have to check which lens I'm putting on which camera in case I want to use a specific lens in crop mode, and it's just really easy having two cameras that are exactly the same. It's also a business expense for me, so when you're looking at it from that perspective, it comes off my tax, and these are just tools for me. Our whole household income is based off my photography and this business, so it's really not that much of a hit money-wise when you think about it that way. Now, something to bear in mind if you were starting out, or maybe you're just starting a new business, maybe you're just a hobbyist, or just having a bit of fun and you want a cool camera, the A7 III is fine. It's a really great camera, and to be honest, I think it's probably one of the best cameras on the market now, dollar for dollar. I think for what you get for your money, it's just an amazing camera. And if I already had two A7 IIIs, I don't think I'd be selling them to get R3s. I don't think it can justify losing that money and that extra cost when I already had two A7 IIIs. I'm definitely interested to see what comes out with the A7S III, because I feel like that's going to be a real groundbreaking camera, and that's definitely something I'd be looking at, especially because now I really want a third camera just dedicated to YouTube, so I don't have to use my main kit for YouTube videos. I can just have a camera set up ready to go. Another reason I chose the R3s over the A7 IIIs was the LCD screen is a bit better, and the viewfinder is definitely better than the A7 III. I have had them side by side and I did notice the difference, but again, it's not something that if you had the A7 IIIs, it's worth selling to get the R3s. The A7 III viewfinder is still great. There is a little bit of a difference. It wasn't really a selling feature for me, but it is there and it is noticeable. Now, a couple of things I would change about my A7R3s. You guys asked this also. So I would like the touchscreen to be more functional, like any other touchscreen camera. Most of them on the market have a full functionality touchscreen. And for me, I don't really use the touchscreen on this camera because it's just not really useful for me. And I find I start moving the focus point around by mistake. So most of the time I have it turned off, and then I just have it programmed to this C4 button here if I want to turn it on and use it for like video or something like that. So an upgraded touchscreen would be nice. I also really missed the dial on the A9. So the A9 had this dial up here, the multi-function dial. I'd really like that. I really miss that after having it on the A9. Something else I think that would be really great on these cameras is having two UHS 2 slots. So I find there's not really much point in having one unless you're just shooting to that one card. When I'm shooting photo and video, it's all sort of bottlenecked by the top card, which is just UHS 1, so you can't really use the 300 megabyte SD cards. I mean, you can, but they don't write at 300 megabytes, so it's kind of pointless. And the last thing is I'd really like to have a small RAW option, so I could shoot like 24 megapixels, for example, but still have that full frame coverage of these really nice G Master primes. I'd really like that. So that's pretty much it, guys. Like I said, if you already had the A7 III, I don't think there's any reason why you should be selling the R3 unless you really want that crop mode or anything like that that's really going to justify it. But for me, I don't think it's worth losing that money and starting again by buying the R3s if you already had the A7 IIIs. So that's pretty much it, guys. Like I said, if you already had the A7 IIIs, I don't think it's probably worth upgrading to the R3s. I'd wait for the next generation of cameras and see what comes out and just get to know your camera more and be happy with what you've got. Thanks for watching, guys. Subscribe to my channel, like this video, comment below. I really appreciate all your support and all you guys following along. This channel is growing really nicely and I'm really happy. I'm loving making all these videos. So anything you guys want to see, comment below. Otherwise, I'll see you tomorrow with the next video.